Okay, and back again. So essentially, sometimes when you're walking on these trails, depending on the day, and it is a Saturday, you're going to get some bottlenecks with other people. And I just crossed paths again with the Great Dane and her owner, and she's like, I gotta get off this trail. These kids are screaming, and my dog hates the screaming. And I'm like, I am so with you, sister. I don't like kids screaming and parents not managing their children either. Seriously. Like, whatever happened to like real parenting, you know? Like, that's inappropriate behavior. Let me pull you out of here and you're no longer going to make a scene. You know, my mom practiced that with me and my brother. If we were out of line, guess what? She removed us from those circumstances and she removed us from that environment. She didn't let us carry on screaming, yelling, having a temper tantrum. It just didn't happen in our family because guess what? My mom knew what boundaries were. She employed those boundaries and she did not create disruptive children. You know, so many parents today need a lesson in parenting. Jeez. Okay. So that was a little rant with children that have parents that don't know how to control their children. You know, when we come out to the woods, you know, and we're on a trail, we want to experience the solitude, the beauty, the serenity, the peace, the quiet. I mean, that is part of the reason to go to the forest, right? It's not to be surrounded by people that are out of control, that are having a temper tantrum, and that are letting their kids run wild. And basically, I don't know, it's also a personal boundary thing. Like, you see the width of this trail, okay? It, you know, it has a certain maximum width to it. And so it's like these parents and all their kids are taking up the entire pathway. So it's like, I couldn't like walk through. It's like, it's a courtesy thing. It's like, pull your kid over onto the side, off of the trail. There's plenty of space out here. Like, move over here so that other people that are on the trail can continue on the trail. It's not that hard, you know, to manage your children. Oh my goodness. You know, I may not be a mother in the technical sense of having a child, but I can tell you, sometimes I think I would be a better mother than some of the mothers that are out there because they don't have boundaries. They don't say no, and their children are running their lives instead of them being the parent and, you know, showing the child this is your limit. This is called a boundary, and no means no. Like, hey, okay, oy vey. So I'm going to stop here and pick up with another topic. All right. So coming back to this tiny house, selectively choosing your space to live, whether that's a tiny house, a van, an RV, or even the large home that you live in, which, let's talk about the other side of things, okay? So there's this guy, I don't remember his name, but he walks around New York City and he sees people that are dressed stylishly, and then he asks them, hey, can I tour your house? And they just all of a sudden say yes, because apparently he's a known celebrity, and they just let him into their home in New York City, and then they start to brag about how wonderful their home is. Now, here's the thing, okay? Like, I get it that things can be excessive, and I get that things can be simple, okay? But when it comes down to what do you need, like, some of these really excessive Manhattan, mega mansions are just plain crazy, okay? So this Asian woman has this very elaborate place, and again, I'm sure from her influence, she had lots of dragons and that type of flavor, like on her ceilings, and gold leaf, and furniture that had really intricate designs, and we're talking thousands of dollars for just a piece of furniture or a lamp, just very excessive. And it was like one room was like a ballroom. It's like most people's normal house was like the size of her one sitting room to entertain guests. And again, I'm not saying that we're not allowed to experience these things. I'm not saying that you're supposed to shrink small and never have wealth. I'm just saying, really, is it that important to have all of these more philosophy? That's all. Now, another person that was being featured in a totally separate house in New York City was a young woman, and she again agrees to let this guy come into her home, and she's showing her home, and she had children. So her house was a family style house in the sense that she was running a family, and she's like, oh, this one refrigerator is healthy food and this one refrigerator is junk food. Okay. Again, how many people really need 2 refrigerators? I don't know, but okay. And the kids' rooms had lots of, like, I'm going to say Alice in Wonderland type of fairyland qualities that made the children feel like they were on an adventure. So yes, it was very creative and whimsical. And it made, it definitely had, a childlike quality to it. But, just sometimes I look at this type of excessive wealth, and although it was highly curated with very unusual pieces in terms of textiles and rugs and curtains and lamps and countertops and nooks and artwork, and I'm saying all these things were absolutely beautiful, but you know what? Where is God in all of that? Like, I did not see God represented. I just didn't. And that's where I'm saying people are lost. They're focused on these highly excessive, maximalist consumerism, and they're missing this. God built this. God created these spaces for us to come and gather and be outside and enjoy God's creation. And it's like all of these consumerism things are, it's like they're beautiful, but they're completely pushing God out of it. And that was just what I noticed. Whereas I just feel like in the tiny house movement, the RV and van life movement, there's more like, there's more conscious thought into what is in that space. There's more conscious thought as to what pieces stay inside. I mean, obviously because the space is smaller, but there's more of a reverence to God, because most of these people that live in these tiny homes, their home is outside, their home is in the forest, their home is near the lake, their home is near the ocean, and they take their home and look at the environment that their home is in, and they carefully accentuate, like if there's a mountain range, then they're accentuating the mountain range of that property. If there's, you know, a snowtop, mountaintop, they're highlighting the snowtop, mountaintop. And that's where I'm saying I think there's more of a connection with nature and with, cultivating that sense together. Hello. Hello. And, whereas, these maximalist, high-rise New York City places, yes, if they have this immense, real estate where they can carve out a piece of greenery, within the middle of New York City, like that really truly is amazing. And then their views of their high-rise looking out to the greenness, that is amazing and that is rare. But it's still that the home itself is still so heavily focused on the consumerism to excess. I mean, how many people are you normally having for a dinner party on the regular? I mean, not that often. And do you really need to have that many rooms that are just sitting empty the majority of the time? Whereas when you're living in a tiny house, you really are using all of the rooms. You really are using the storage. You really are using the spaces for their function. And in all these large houses, even though they've designated the rooms as this is our entertaining room and this is our game room and this is our, guest bedroom and this is our whatever, even though they have the excess of all of these monstrous rooms, they're not really using those rooms. The majority of those rooms are like a museum. They're just sitting there waiting to be used. Whereas people that are living in tiny living, their homes are so appreciated. They're very functional. They're very purposeful. And people have a different sense of gratitude than those who are coming from the other extreme of, the maximalist, high-rise, let me look good to all my friends at my dinner party, when in fact maybe they really don't know those people very well at all, but they're just a social circle or it's just a status, whereas the people in van life and RV life and tiny living, it's like they are building community. And even if that community is at that location, at that campsite, like long-term friendships are formed, and those conversations still go on with some of the people that I've met from all over, and we can pick up the phone and still be connected no matter where we are. And then when our paths cross again and we're in the same location, then we can again physically, face to face, gather together. But we don't need, mega mansions in order to do that. And I think that's kind of what's missing right now. That's just, sometimes you see a theme, and I see this theme of simplicity versus excessive maximalism and excessive ownership. And you look around at most people's places, and for many years as a fitness trainer, I would go into people's homes and teach privates in people's homes, and I would get to see how people live. And surprisingly, so many people lived with tons of clutter and hoarding, and it's like they were unwilling to look at the space that they had and say, this is enough. Like, no, I don't need any more. But the tendency is to keep buying more and more and more. And this more and more and more is part of this, excessive thinking that could be even linked to addiction, because this more and more and more attitude is the mindset of drug addicts and alcoholics and gamblers and sex addicts and people that are into porn. It's like all of those things are excessive, and they're all like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And I kind of saw the same with some of these insanely curated spaces that really looked like their excessiveness was only for ego and flattery and not really for function. And I guess that's just the observation that I'm making. So anyway, thanks for listening, and I appreciate you. If you could give me a thumbs up for this video and other videos, I greatly appreciate it to help grow the channel. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom.